I'm going to be showing you the contour mistakes that are ruining your makeup. I know a lot of people make these mistakes because I've seen it online. I've even seen some beauty gurus do it, and honestly, unless you are a pro sometimes, it isn't going to work that well for you. So I'm going to show you the wrong side, so all the mistakes, and then I'm also going to show you the correct way of doing it. So currently I have just a little bit of concealer on my under eye area. Eyes are done, brows are done, lips are done, but everywhere else there's no foundation. So first thing I want to do is apply a layer of foundation, because I'm doing this based on the fact that you contour on top of your foundation. I have done a video before where I've shown how you should contour underneath your foundation, but I'm well aware that a lot of you guys apply your contour on top of foundation. So this is for you guys. Even if you don't, even if you apply your contour underneath, you can still actually use this because there's still going to be mistakes. So first thing I'm going to do is apply just a bit of foundation all over my face. So I've got my Haus foundation on the back of my hand. This is in 300 medium neutral, and I've got my BK Beauty 106 brush. So I'm just going to buff into this, and let me just tuck my hair away so that you can really focus on what I'm doing. So I'm just going to buff this into the skin. So as I said, I've got some concealer on my under eye area. I'm just going to like go over that a bit so it doesn't look so white. If you apply your foundation with a sponge, that's absolutely fine. I do that as well a lot of the time. But I really just want to show you a quick foundation application so that you can see how my skin is before putting on the contour. Okay, so as you can see, we have the foundation on. I've got a nice even finish. I'm kind of happy with that. Now the next step would be the contouring. So I'm going to be using the Makeup by Mario SoftSculpt Shaping Stick. So we've got the shade Dark ready here. Now I'm not going to be using the brush that's on this because I actually prefer using a different brush. You've probably heard me say that you can use concealers to contour, and I still stand by that. I'm just using a contour stick because I actually think this is probably one of the best actual contour products I've used, but I actually think that the concealers can do a better job as well, better than this. So I'm just using this because I know a lot of people out there kind of use actual contour products, like products that have been created with the word contour on there, as opposed to using concealers in a dark shade. So I'm going to go ahead and start on the side where we're going to create all the mistakes. Now the first mistake is the positioning of your contour. So first off, what we're going to be doing is contouring the cheekbones, and this is where basically the aim is to make sure that we kind of get that kind of nice indent here, little shadow there, which makes it look like you've got a more defined cheekbone. So the mistake here is the placement. So this is where I'm going to be starting quite low, so in the middle of the ear. I see a lot of people start at that point, and the problem is you've really got to think about the shape of your face. If you have a very long face from the bottom section, like your chin is quite long, you could probably get away from with the middle of the ear, but ultimately you need to think about where the middle position of your face is here. So that could be kind of a little bit higher, it could be a little bit lower, but ultimately it's going to be roughly around the top part of the ear. So what we've done here is we're applying it too low. Now, not only am I talking about the position here, this is also how much we're applying. So here, I'm just going to go ahead and that was like, I did not expect that to be that thick, but it is that thick. But then it's very easy. It just goes to show it's so easy to make that mistake because you use a contour stick and then you're just like literally like a crayon. So you've got to really think about how much you're applying and what part of it you're using, which is also why I prefer using concealers instead, because you've got the wand, it's very precise. The problem with something like this is that it's a stick. Look at the size of it. Like, that's going to be really difficult for you to actually contour your face and like sculpt your face. So you would kind of like use a brush with this instead if you don't feel so confident using this on its own. For example, if someone like me, who this is my job, this is what I do, I was using this, I would basically use the corner of it. But not everyone who uses makeup uses it in the right way. But also, that's completely understandable. I don't want you guys to think that I'm sitting here saying, oh my God, how could you use it this way? I can't believe you used it that way. It's so easy to make those mistakes, especially when you are someone who uses makeup to just make yourself feel better, give yourself some confidence, or just wanting to enhance your features, but it isn't your job. It's not your day job. Do you see what I mean? So it is understandable. Like, I'm sure you can understand me not being able to do certain mathematical sums, you know, like I had to even think about what word I need to use there, because that isn't my day job, you know, so I'm not going to be good at it. So I fully understand why you would make these mistakes. It's really easy when you don't actually know so much about makeup. Wrong positioning, wrong like thickness, way too much product there. And I know some of you guys might say, well, you know what, this is a little bit obvious, who would even do their makeup like this? But there are people who do, because they don't have that much kind of experience in it. I just did this twitch because I had this weird twitch in my back. So let's move on to the other side and do this in the correct way. There are two ways of doing this in the right way. You either use a brush and then go on to this and then apply it, or you can use the stick. Now I'm just going to use the stick because if you're using a brush, it's pretty easy. You get the brush, you go on here and you can do the placement right. But I want to show you how you use a stick like this. So we're going to go to the middle of the ear, but can you see we're not actually placing it like this? We're actually holding it to the corner. So we're using, can you see how thin that is now? Now middle of the ear, we're going to aim to go about here, which is the upper lip. So this area here, not the actual lip, the upper lip area. So we're going to go towards that area, but we're stopping around there. See how this came all the way down here? Like a lot of people do come this far in, but here we've stopped it in the middle there, like kind of, I would say just before you get to the middle of the eye. It really does depend on your eye placement too. Like if your eyes are quite far like apart, then I would say the middle of the eye. If your eyes are quite far in, then it would be the end of the eye. So you've really got to think about the structure of your face, the positioning of your features too. So here, all I would say is based on the face, just the kind of middle of that area here, like this area here, make sure you finish in the middle. Placement is better, it's top of the ear, it's working our way in towards the upper lip, but it's also, you can see the placement, if you look at this whole face on this side, it's kind of in the middle. If you look at this, this is way too far low. So now that we've done the cheekbones like that, I do want to show you now the mistake that you can make with blending and the correct way of doing it. I'm using my Charlotte Tilbury Hollywood Complexion brush. Now this is where we are going to start kind of like blending this, and I have to stop myself from buffing because I buff, and you've seen me buff before, but a lot of people don't buff. What they do is they just kind of like try and blend it, and I'm going to do this in circular motions, and I'm trying my best not to make an intentional bad job at this. I'm trying to really, you know, do this in the right way. Well, you know, blend. Circular movements, what that's done is ended up covering the entire cheek. And I know what a lot of people do is a little trick I'm going to show you in a minute, but I'm going to tell you why that isn't actually the best option. Some people, what they'll do is when they go into their light shade concealer to kind of highlight and things, they will end up carving out the right shape then, which I'll show you, but I want to show you that you can get it right off the cuff. Like you can get it off, is that the right saying? Right off the bat or right off the cuff? I don't know, but you know, right from the beginning you can get it right. Before we use this on the other side, I'm going to just take off the excess off this brush because I don't want any extra product. Now this is where we're not going to swirl. What we're going to do is we are going to press, and if you feel like you're getting a bit too much product, go onto the tissue and wipe it off. Can you see we're just pressing? Okay. How much better does that look? It looks so much better. I'm going a bit extra with the product in general because I want you guys to see through the camera, but look at the difference. So next up, when it comes to carving out the skin, like carving out your features with a lighter shade concealer, I'm going to use the Hourglass Vanish concealer in Beach, and I'm going to show you what I've seen a lot of people do. So they'll do the whole dark shade and then they'll be like, it's okay, I can sort it out. So then what they'll do is they'll kind of like go with the concealer like that, And then they'll think, right, I can just cover that whole area and it's gonna correct it. So number one, there is way too much product there. I know it doesn't look like it, it's just a little thin stripe, but there actually is too much product there. I'm gonna get my beauty blender. I've seen a lot of people do this with their sponge. Now this is where I'm just gonna kind of like buff this in, or I'm gonna, you know, drag it as well. And then this makes them feel better about it because all of a sudden they've kind of lifted it a little bit, right? But I'm going to show you why that's a no-go. Can you see how it's still, even though it's not all covered there, you've still got that darkness underneath, and it can change the way your concealer ends up looking when you've applied it because it's warming it up. So it's not actually giving you the look that you want. It's not as kind of chiseled out as you'd want. So now let's move on to the correct side. Now this is where we're going to go right underneath the lip line, right there. There, that's all we're gonna do there. That's enough. Now, instead of using a sponge, we're gonna use a brush for this. I'm using the Charlotte Tilbury Hollywood Complexion brush, but it's a different one, so I haven't used it on the dark shade. Now, this is where, can you see we've placed it right beneath the lip line? What that's doing is helping to actually lift the lip line at the same time, but it's also gonna help to just really kind of like highlight this area here so that it kind of works hand in hand with the contour. At the moment, this doesn't really do anything other than try and correct a mistake that you made, whereas this is actually going to help it as opposed to trying to correct a mistake. So what we're going to do now, can you see we actually stopped there, right about where we stopped the contour there, right? Because it's going to spread. What you need to remember is every time you start blending anything on the face, which is cream or powder, it will naturally get bigger in the size when you start blending it. So with this, we're actually going to drag down and kind of like drag down and also press. There you go. And right here, we can just start buffing it in. We're staying in the same kind of like place. We're not taking it up too far. We're not actually trying to cover anything. We're just trying to create that nice seamless finish. Can you see the difference there? Like, look how this dark shade that we applied at the top there is just blending perfectly. So even though we've got this on top of our foundation, it doesn't look bad. It actually looks like we've highlighted that area and it's actually complemented that cheekbone contour really, really well. Whereas this looks all a bit dark to me. I mean, I can see from the camera screen, which is quite far from me, and I can already tell, even from that being so far from me, that there's a massive difference between the way this looks and between, like, from this. So now moving on to the next stage, which is the jawline. Now this is where we're going to do this in the mistake way. So I'm going to just move my earring out of the way. Again, use it flat. There's going to be too much product here. Right, this is where, see how wrong that is? There are so many things wrong with that, right? Number one is the placement. The placement, we started at the right place, which is at the bottom of the ear. It should be beneath the jawline. This is actually above it. And then also what we've done is ended up following the shape that we can see of the jawline. That's the shape I can see because I do have slight jowl effect there, right? So for me, I end up kind of going like that. What that does is, what you're actually doing is enhancing whatever shape that you're seeing that you're trying to actually eradicate, like completely wipe off the face of the planet. You're trying to change that. You're trying to actually give it that snatch look, but what you're doing is actually enhancing it. Way too thick, gonna look muddy again. So let's start blending this. We're gonna get the Charlotte Tilbury complexion brush, and I've seen people generally do this well in terms of like blending it into the jawline, but the problem is you've got so much product that can end up just looking way too much. Like, that to me is just too much. There's so much going on there, it's wrong. And then it ends up just looking really cakey, muddy, and everything is like disconnected. So we're gonna go over to the way that we wanna do it in the right way. And this is where we're gonna use the corner of it again. We're gonna go at the bottom of the ear. We're gonna actually use the corner, like I mentioned, and we're gonna go underneath the jawline, and we're focusing on getting a straight line. Whatever line you create there is the shape of your jawline going forward. Not forever, obviously, unfortunately, but you know, that's what you're gonna live with for the day, whatever you've applied. So now what? We want to blend it, right? So you can see it's beneath the jawline. It's a straight line. We have focused on drawing something on a surface area which is actually really hard to draw on. So you imagine you've got a flat piece of paper you're drawing on. It's easy to draw whatever you want, or roundabout easy. Like, you know what you want to do when you want to do a circle. You know what you want to do when you do a straight line. There's nothing that is kind of intrusive. There's nothing which is making it harder for you to do it because it's a flat surface. But the problem is when you have something like a face, it's not flat. It is all over the place. There are shapes and parts of the face that are kind of coming out, which make it hard because you can't keep that same pressure all the way across like you can when you're writing on a piece of paper or drawing, because your pressure can stay the same. Your hand is gliding along this even surface area, whereas here you're kind of like, oh, I've come across like the chin, I've come across like the jawline. Like, you have to adjust your hand and your movement and your pressure based on where you're applying it. So here, go beneath the jawline. Make sure you don't follow whatever you're looking at. It's really hard to do, but you've got to disconnect what you're looking at from what you're trying to do. So you know roughly the placement, but you don't want to follow a curve. Do you see what I mean? You don't want to follow the natural curve of the face. You want to create the curve that you want to give the illusion of. So that's where you want to apply it on like, you want to go straight. Got the brush, and this is where there's far less product than before. We're not going to go back and forth like that. We're going to just go down, and you're going to see the difference. And then we're just going to make sure it's all blended in. How easy was that? And how snatched does my jawline look? I'm sorry, but that's just, it's like mud. It's just so muddy and dirty looking, and this is nice and clean and snatched. Like, even though I've done this all on top of my foundation, it's insane how this is still wearable and this just looks so wrong and muddy. It's going to end up looking more cakey. If anything, I feel like I can see the texture in my skin a little bit more. So hopefully that has helped you out. I wanted to keep this, you know, I wanted to make it, I'm not going to say simple because a lot of people don't find contouring simple, but I really did want to make this something that is broken down a bit. So I don't want to overwhelm you with like, let's contour the eyes now, let's contour the nose now. I wanted to stick to kind of the main big surface areas of the face where I know that a lot of people do contour. Not everyone contours their nose, but I feel like when we think of contouring, most people do contour their cheekbones and their jawline. So I wanted to really keep it back to basics for you so that it's easy for you to understand, easy for you to rewind, rewatch whenever you want, and get this perfected. On that note, don't forget that I do have an online publication called The Beauty Breakfast Club, which is a online magazine written by me. Everything's written by me. I have newsletters every week, roughly around 3 or minimum of 3. It's all about beauty. It's a nice community that I'd love you to join over there. It's beauty, self, health, topics that are trending at the moment, makeup reviews, like product reviews, skincare reviews, some DIY at home help for you guys when it comes to skincare and things like that. There are 2 options of subscription. One is free, which gives you access to most of the site. The other is paid, but it's the equivalent of just getting yourself a coffee a month, and that gives you access to the entire site. And we get a chat room where me and you can actually chat. And yeah, you get access to all of the newsletters. So it's really, really great. I would love you to head on over there and show your support. I also have another YouTube channel, which is a vlog and podcast channel, which I host with my husband, all about marriage, advice, topics. Basically, we say what everyone's thinking. Very relatable. So you might want to head on over there too. I'd love to see you over there. And if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel and hit the bell button so that you don't miss any of my future videos. Until the next video, take care, and I'll see you soon.